Good day, everybody. It is Extreme Azure here again, and it is awkward. Alright, so we know that Nintendo has a knack for doing something like this. They have a very strong knack for coming out of scenic nowhere and dropping some news on us like it literally always just comes out of nowhere. And just a few days ago they announced that a new 3DS was coming out. Not just any 3DS, it's specifically the new 3DS. This is not like the 2DS, this is not like the 3DS XL, this is a new 3DS, completely new. And even though it came out of nowhere, it actually was hinted at before, because just about a few months ago, on their main website, they had taken out the original 3DS model. It's like they weren't displaying it anymore. It was just the 2DS and the 3DS XL. Those were the two variants of the 3DS that they were pushing. So that left a few to wonder exactly what was going on as to why the original 3DS was now so conveniently removed from existence. Turns out that this is probably, most likely, this is the reason why. Because they were gearing up for their reveal of the brand new 3DS, which they unveiled in the recent Nintendo Direct, which was exclusively related to the Nintendo 3DS. And yeah, this is surprising because of what it has inside of it. This is not just any new model. Like I said, you know, with the 2DS, it was the same system except a few changes that brought the price down. Instead of two individual screens, it was now one screen. That brought the price down. Instead of having two stereo speakers, it now had one mono speaker. That brought the price down. You know, it had a different design. It didn't have the clamshell design like the original one where you could fold it up. It removed the 3D function, which is why it's called the 2DS. But that was the same system, except it was just slightly cheaper. With the 3DS XL, of course, you know, it had slightly different design once again, but it was the same system except with better battery life and a bigger display. So with those two variants of the 3DS, it was still the same system, even though it had a few little differences. But here with this new 3DS, which will come in two versions, a new 3DS and a new 3DS XL, with this new 3DS, Nintendo has gone ahead and it's almost a completely different system. It's changed almost entirely. So what exactly makes this different from the original 3DS? Why did they go ahead and name it the new 3DS? Well, that's because inside of it, what makes it so new is what's going on inside of it. Apparently, it's rumored to have more RAM than the original 3DS. It is supposed to have a faster CPU than the original 3DS. It has better 3D technology. It has a micro SD card slot instead of a normal SD card slot that was in the original. It has the near field communication or NFC support, which is now built into the system. It's no longer going to need an adapter like the original 3DS and 3DXL will, so that, you know, the Amiibo toy line that Nintendo has announced, that's now going to be embedded into this new 3DS, so you won't have to buy the separate adapter. Just like how the Wii U gamepad has an NFC chip, just like how tablets and smartphones have NFC chips inside of them, that's what this new 3DS is going to have. It now incorporates the Circle Pad Pro, which has now been deformed into a little nub stick on the right of the unit, so it's not going to be compatible with the Circle Pad Pro adapter because that's now embedded into the system. So technically you now have two sticks instead of one. And it has a brand new ZR and ZL triggers, which are both incorporated from the Wii U gamepad. So basically just the rundown: has a faster CPU, more RAM, it's rumored to have more RAM, it has better 3D technology, it has new buttons, and a micro SD card slot. That's the basic rundown of it. So, why? That leaves the question, why did they decide to go ahead and do this? Now, people have already chimed in as to what they think about the system. Some say, well, hey, Apple releases a brand new iPhone every year, which is true. The iPhone 6 is supposed to be unveiled in, if not a few days, a few weeks. We just got the iPhone 5S. But anyway, like people have said, Apple releases a brand new phone every year, and you have other people like Samsung, HP, so many other companies which release devices on a constant basis. So why is it such a problem that Nintendo has gone ahead and released a brand new 3DS? Well, that's the difference between mobile devices and game consoles. That's always been the difference. With computers, computer technology advances almost every day. Every time you look on the internet, you see that there's some brand new graphics card coming out. You see that a company has released a new model of a computer. Operating systems are always getting updates. You have these constant revisions because they're always uncovering something new. They're always making something better. And that's just how fast computer technology advances. With gaming technology, it's slightly different. Game consoles aren't like PCs and mobile devices because they come in generations. We are in the 8th official generation of video games. And in that time, game consoles have advanced at a much slower pace than computers and mobile devices have. Regardless whether it was a handheld system or whether it was a full-fledged home console, they've always advanced at a slower pace because while one system is out, the company is behind closed doors thinking about what they're going to do for the next generation. And that next generation isn't until maybe 5 to 7, or like we saw with the 7th generation, almost 10 years later, they're going to release a new system. So, while they're formulating their new system, users are buying and enjoying the system that is currently a part of that generation. That's just how game technology goes. Because gaming is very expensive. And seriously, if we were imagine if PlayStation and Xbox and Nintendo were coming up with a brand new system every year or two. You know how expensive gaming would be, and you know how just wild and crazy it would be? See, computer companies can get away with that. Mobile companies can get away with that because it's a completely different environment. But for dedicated gaming technology, it's a whole lot different because developers are making games tailor-made. It's practically tailor-made to adapt to a specific system. Instead of a variety of systems, they're trying to make stuff that will be compatible with a specific system. Every person who buys a PS4, they're gonna get the same system inside and out. Even if they might get a white one or a black one, it's still gonna be the same system. Whether they get one with 500 gigabytes of space or 1 terabyte of space, it's the same system. So I'm just using that as an example. But when people go out and buy an iPhone, some are going to have the iPhone 5, but some are going to have the iPhone 5S. Some are going to have an iPhone 4. Some are going to have soon an iPhone 6. So they're making it so developers have to take into account they're making stuff for different devices. Especially when you talk about like Android, which has 1,000,001 different devices running the same OS, and even then they're running different versions of the OS, some older, some newer, so it's definitely a whole lot different. So people getting concerned as to this brand new 3DS, they have a right to. They have a strong right to, because right now, as it looks, just like how Xenoblade Chronicles was announced to be coming to the 3DS, it's not coming to the original 3DS or the original 3DS XL. It will be only compatible with this new line of 3DS systems. The new 3DS and the new 3DS XL are the only two systems which are going to be able to run these games like Xenoblade Chronicles. The original 3DS, the original 3DS XL, the 2DS, they're going to be completely omitted. And that is where the problem lies. Now, Nintendo has done this before. This is not new, them revising their handheld systems. We saw it with, look at the Game Boy. We had the Game Boy, the original Game Boy, then the Game Boy Color, then the Game Boy Advance, and the Game Boy Advance SP. Then we had Nintendo DS. With the Nintendo DS, we had the Nintendo DS, the original Fat DS, then the DS Lite, then the DSi, then the DSi XL. So it's not uncommon for them to release revised versions of their handheld systems. But the big difference here is that there is no backwards compatibility. There is no I shouldn't even say backwards compatibility. There's no compatibility, full-on compatibility between the new 3DS and the original 3DS. The new 3DS is going to be able to play all of the games from the original 3DS's library, but the original 3DS will not be able to play the games from the new 3DS's library. So you can put in your old 3DS games and they're gonna work just fine, just as they operated on your original 3DS, but you cannot play Xenoblade Chronicles on your 2011 3DS or your 2013 3DS XL or 2012. I'm confused exactly when that was released, but anyway, you get the point. So my thing is, why would Nintendo now decide to shunt out over 40 million people with this brand new model? Because, like I said, it's not like the 3DS XL, it's not like the 2DS, it's completely new, inside and out. It has different, it's a different setup, it's more powerful and has a lot more bells and whistles. So that just completely omits all of the original owners, the 40 million plus owners. Right now the 3DS is the best selling 8th generation video game system in all. So they're basically, with this new 3DS, they're basically pushing them to the side and are now starting over anew. Now the 3DS was released back in 2011, it is now 2014, the middle of 2014. It's only been about 3 years. 3.5 years, I guess you could say, since the original 3DS came into form. So in the 3.5 years that over 40 million people have bought the system, and thousands of people just adopted it this year alone, with that amount of systems having been sold, why would they now, only 3.5 years later, want to basically start over? Because that's what they're doing. Because this new 3DS, like they said, games will not be able to run on the original system. So with this new 3DS, either you buy this or you aren't going to be able to play some of the new games like it's Xenoblade Chronicles. Why they made this move, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, it's an upgrade in power is not a bad thing, but it's a bad thing when you're suddenly now omitting all of the other players. It's different if they were to add more space, you know, like being able to set more games, have more space for more apps and games and stuff like that. It would be different if they just added the new Pro Controller. It would be different if they just had different buttons, but it's basically an entirely new system, just bearing the same name. It's a slightly upgraded 3DS, but it's upgraded to the point where certain games will not be compatible with the older models. PCs can get away with this, mobile devices can get away with this because they're always changing. But game consoles are different, because when you buy a game console, within the generation you expect that you're going to be able to get at least 5 years out of that system before you have to go out and buy a new one. When you buy a smartphone, you expect that to be obsolete within the next 6 months to a year. You expect to buy a new smartphone maybe a year or two later, because you know by the time you get that smartphone, in a few months a new version of that is going to be announced. When you buy a laptop or you buy a desktop computer, you know that thing is going to either need to be upgraded internally, or you're just gonna have to buy a new system within a few years, because you know that technology doesn't stop. But with game consoles, like I said, they come in generations. So when you buy a 7th generation system, you don't expect that to go bad 2 years later unless you bought it at the end of the generation. And now with the 8th generation, you know, it's basically just started. It's still very, very young. It's only been 3.5 years since it officially started, and now all the consoles are out, and there's still a long way to go before we head to the 9th generation. So it's almost shocking to see that they would actually go ahead and now basically abandon the 40 million players with this brand new system. And it'll be interesting to see how they do this, because if they say Xenoblade is not going to be compatible with the older models, how many other games are going to be like Xenoblade? How many other games behind Xenoblade are not going to be compatible with the older 3DS? Of course, the older 3DS is still getting new games, obviously, but like, you know, Smash Brothers and Pokemon and so many others. But how many other games like Xenoblade are not going to be compatible with this brand new system? That's the big $100,000 question that needs to be asked. What other games are there? Is it going to be 5? games that are exclusive to this new system is going to be 10 or 20, because for them to go through all the trouble of upgrading the system's internal parts, you know, giving it more RAM, giving it more power, if they're going to go through all that trouble, then how far do they intend to go with it? That's the point here. Now, 3DS is not a very huge investment. It's not like buying a home console. It's much, much cheaper. $200 is basically the same, is actually cheaper than your average smartphone. So if people can drop $600 to $800 a year for a brand new iPhone, what difference will it make for them to drop $200 on a brand new 3DS or $300? Yes, when you take it into account that these smartphones and tablets and laptops are really expensive, much more expensive than your average game console. Yes, that is the case, and yes, people buy them in a continuous cycle, but how many are going to be willing to do it, because they very well know how gaming generations are supposed to work? Especially if they just bought it yesterday, for instance. I would be royally pissed if I bought a 3DS yesterday, only to know that a brand new model is coming out and everything that I get for my brand new but now obsolete 3DS I'm not going to be able to carry it further with anything that's released for that specific new model. I'd be royally pissed. I do not have a 3DS yet. I was actually planning to get one, but now I'm really glad I didn't, because now I'm not sure where Nintendo is going to go with this. And that's the main concern that a lot of people have, and they have every right to be concerned with this. So, what do I think of the new system? I think it's pretty cool that they decided to upgrade it, but to the extent where other players are, 40 million other players are going to be left out, that's what makes it so bad. So Nintendo needs, I hope they thought long and hard about this, and I really am quite curious to see how far this is going to go and what exactly is going to happen. So, until then, all we can do is wait, and all we can do is see what's going to happen as the year continues to go on. The new 3DS comes out this year in Japan, and then other territories like Europe and the Americas aren't going to get it sometime next year, but we shall see exactly how far it goes. So, I want to thank you guys for watching this video. This is the kind of video that is made for feedback, so drop down a comment below. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up, and please, you see that big, beautiful subscribe button there? Press it. Press the button. Press it. Until next time, I'll see you guys later, and continue to have a great day. And of course, keep on gaming.